All right, hello, welcome everyone to Star Trek from the Holodeck. I am your host and captain of the USS Rain Man Digital, and on the bridge with me, no, he's not my science officer. He's not chief of security. He is in charge of catering. Hello, David Sabal. Ensign. You know what? You don't even have a rank.
I was about to say, I thought I was in the lower decks.
Weren't you enlisted last time because I demoted you?
Yes. Unfortunately, I was demoted to, cleanup crew of the holodeck.
Yeah, basically, well, okay, you just demoted yourself even more because I said you were in charge of catering, but okay, if you want to clean up all the jism, by all means, go ahead. All right, Dave, so we have an interesting episode to discuss and dissect. A lot of interesting components, and it is a divisive episode, surprisingly, just because of the nature of the content itself. If you go to social media, it isn't the usual trolling that you find nowadays. There's just people posing questions to the questions that this very episode posed. A lot of discussion going on, and whether that's good or not, remains to be seen. It does seem like the conversation is veering slightly into the negative now, almost a week later, because we're recording this a bit delayed. But we will answer that question ourselves. Did this episode work? Should it be as divisive as it seems to be? And by the end of our discussion, we're going to try to answer that. So this week's Strange New Worlds episode is titled, What is Starfleet? And it takes a big swing by framing the story as, I suppose you can say, an in-universe documentary, which was produced and shot by Ortegas's brother, Beto. And instead of a straight narrative about the Enterprise's mission to transport a genetically altered psionic creature called the Jikaru, I believe was the name, we get a shaky handheld type footage, awkward interviews, and a very biased editorial style. Now, this is all intentional.
Yes.
And the idea behind this format makes sense when you think about it, though, because Star Trek has always reflected the political climate of its time, is it going too far by posing certain questions? Because even though Star Trek does parallel the politics, the contemporary socio-politics of the time, it also tries to stay away from trendy political thought. So that's something that we're also going to wade through in our discussion. The original series, just as a bit of as a reminder to the new listeners out there and new Star Trek fans, the original series responded to the Civil Rights era and the Cold War. Enterprise leaned into post 9/11 sensibilities, and Discovery, just a few short years ago, also worked within the story's long-standing liberal humanist framework. But society has shifted, and liberal humanism isn't the dominant outlook it once was. People tend to discard older political modes for newer ones.
Yeah.
And I think most of us can agree that the political leaning, specifically in left-leaning politics, has changed drastically. Oh, not just in the 60 years that Star Trek has been on the air, but just in the last 10, 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of liberal politics has changed drastically. And that's left Trek in a position where some audiences feel it isn't doing enough to address contemporary crises. And this episode largely tries to bridge that gap by asking a fundamental question. What is Starfleet really? And the answer it lands on is that Starfleet works not because of the institution itself, but because of the people, which is spot on. That is a perfect characterization, which is ultimately what saved the episode for me. The future humans who've been reshaped by tragedy and have come out the other side differently. That's what Star Trek reflects. That's the humanity that we are introduced to in every episode of Star Trek have been fundamentally changed. They're not us. They are a different people. And that utopian core of Trek that people can change, and that change is what sustains the whole system, is is largely what Star Trek is based on, as well as, of course, leaning on and using the foundation of liberal humanist thought and philosophy. Now, David, did this work for you? Because you understand the concept, you get what they're trying to do. This episode's trying to bridge the different eras of politics to explain things to people, how Star Trek works. Because if you've been around, David, since day one, we understand how Star Trek operates politically. But there may be people who question why they do certain things that might seem like a no-brainer, like unethical. Why are they even debating these things? And these were questions even posed during the TNG era. There were various episodes where people were appalled by decisions Captain Picard made. But upon reflection and understanding the politics that Star Trek's built on, you tend to understand a bit better. So, Dave, did this work for you? Did you see and understand what was happening before your eyes?
Well, as a viewer and basically knowing how behind the scenes how storytelling and writing work, yeah, I can see what the writers were doing. The one key aspect that basically for me that kind of throws a monkey wrench into the whole thing is the idea that basically there's this almost like this cynicism that's thrown into the story, which doesn't really make sense by the time I get to the end of the episode. And it kind of left me, don't get me wrong, the episode is fine as it is. It's a good episode. It's very Star Trek, because I will give season 3 all the props in the world since me and you have started covering it. It has created this organic discussion that I haven't seen with a lot of Star Trek fans, where people are talking about like aspects of the story now and talking about it in a philosophical way where it's like, okay, this is what Star Trek is saying. Is it right? Is it wrong? Does it work for me? Does it work for you? And this is one of those episodes that actually does cross that line where it poses a question that you're not going to get 100% of people to agree one way or the other.
Yeah.
The only issue that I have is, and it took me a while to actually think about it, because, you know, coming into the studio today, I was still kind of confused how to feel about this episode.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Where it was like, I shouldn't feel cynical with this episode. Why do I feel cynical? And then, like, talking about it with you, it actually makes sense to me. The key component is the Beto character. Why does a human in Star Trek right now, and I'm not talking about us in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking
in
about
universe.
In universe.
Yeah.
How is he questioning with cynicism Starfleet?
Yeah.
He shouldn't be.
And that's the big problem that I have too. And and there may be people already listening, David, who say, well, you know, there's always been people that questioned, you know, Federation. Usually not humans. It's usually a cautious alien species.
Yeah.
There is the issue of the Maquis, which also wasn't a human issue.
They're not human.
Well, there were some humans that were involved in the Maquis, but they were living within the demilitarized zone.
Yeah.
And by that very reason, they were pulled into the conflict. But that wasn't a problem initiated by the Federation or humanity. It was an issue that was initiated because of the peace between the Federation and Cardassia.
Yes.
And they were trying to be diplomatic. And in being diplomatic and forming a treaty with Cardassia, they caused problems within certain areas that caused certain Federation citizens to become disgruntled.
Disgruntled, yeah.
But it wasn't it wasn't because of humanity's imperfections, their flaws, their greed. It wasn't about that. So this is a very different type of situation. And I guarantee you, anyone can throw any situation at me from the TNG era, as well as Enterprise, and even Discovery. And I will say that, guess what? It's never been quite this posed in this way.
Yes.
Meaning, look at Discovery, like what they did with Harry Mudd. Harry Mudd in season 1 of Star Trek Discovery made a comment about the little people that you fly over.
Yes.
He's all, so the Federation and their big Starfleet vessels flying over the little ones underneath without no care in the world. Now, the reason why that never bothered me is because Harry Mudd is a polygamist,
And he's not
piece of shit,
He's not part of Starfleet.
a criminal.
But he's not also Mike. He's not part of Starfleet.
Right. He is literally everything that Starfleet does not represent.
Yeah.
And he's a disgruntled criminal whose views are stemmed from a form of resentfulness. And you could say the same thing about Beto, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's get into this. The concept overall, as I had said, is fine. It makes sense to pose questions like this for a contemporary audience because it gives the writers a chance to clarify what Star Trek is really about and remind us how its world operates. These types of episodes often find themselves in every series at some point where they feel, okay, enough time has passed since our last series and we have a new audience and they may not understand the foundations that our socio-political ideology is built on for this world. So let's take some time and explain how it works. And that's kind of what this episode was designed to do. Trek has lasted this long, Dave, because it doesn't simply react to political trends or even knee-jerk cultural debates. It has always had its own political identity that then reacts to the current political moment, but it has its own political ideology and its own political identity that sits apart from the cultural moment. The problem here is the way it was executed. Instead of letting the issue emerge naturally from the Trek story world, the episode frames it through a character whose cynicism, as you were saying, Dave, doesn't belong in this future. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't work with everything we know of Star Trek. So in Trek's story world, humanity has already gone through collapse, scarcity, and war, and supposedly have come out the other side intact, improved, evolved, and better. The Federation exists because humans and others have embraced a post-scarcity, post-cynical mode of being. So when a character like Beto, who lives in that same future, acts with the kind of suspicion and or bitterness and performative outrage we associate with our contemporary politics, it rings false.
We'll also throw on the fact that he's and the difference between him and Harry Mudd, he's actually in the Federation.
Yeah.
He's actually part of Starfleet.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, no, that to me doesn't really fit what they were trying to do. If you were to actually use this, like, and people have been throwing around Encounter at Farpoint at this episode, comparing it.
Bring that mic over.
Oh, like that.
It is definitely analogous too.
And
without a doubt.
And a lot of people online are comparing this to Encounter at Farpoint. The difference between these two episodes was the fact that in Encounter at Farpoint, they're dealing with a alien colonized, species, a different race of people. Beto is supposed to be part of Starfleet.
Yeah, the person, yes, that's also a one-off. That's an individual doing something. But as a group, the Federation, they don't suffer from those types of issues because it's not that people, Dave, in the Federation, it's not that they don't question institution.
But they've risen above it.
Starfleet officers do that all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, in the episode, which I did think was very good, Uhura said, we don't follow blindly. We know what we've signed up for. We know and we agree with it.
Yes.
So their critique, however, usually comes from within the utopian frame itself, though. That's the other difference. So the assumption that people are fundamentally cooperative, ethical, and not motivated by the same insecurities or resentments that define us today, that's typically how the critique is framed within Star Trek. And that's why Beto's whole project feels off. And I understand that's kind of the idea, and that's why the episode works and it also doesn't work, because the very idea is that Beto is being disingenuous, that he has a political agenda because he's resentful, he's angry that the Federation had put his sister, or Starfleet, I should say, in harm's way. So all of it makes sense. It's just little changes would have made it make a little more sense when it comes to canon and what we know of Star Trek, because it doesn't, these issues that Beto has, it doesn't grow out of his reality. It grows out of ours.
There you go. Yeah.
As if the show imported a 21st century distrust of institutions into the 23rd century without accounting for how humanity itself is meant to have changed.
There you go.
So the mindset Beto has doesn't even make sense within the world of Star Trek. It's our mindset. We would pose these types of questions. We would say, is Starfleet really this benevolent institution, or is it an empire?
It's an empire.
We would pose those questions. In fact, I think we've had one-off discussions for Patreon where we've actually tackled those discussions, and that makes sense from our perspective. But if you are asking the fictional characters in this fictional universe to pose those questions, it doesn't actually work.
It's very much like the old TNG episodes where a lot of people point out how a lot of the Starfleet characters in TNG seem very naive, where they run into species and they're introduced to quote unquote archaic notions that are more meant for, like, I hate saying it, but like de-evolved humans. And that's how Beto feels, is like Beto doesn't actually feel like, how did he get, my question was like, how did he get through Starfleet? Because like with his type
What
of
do you mean get through
characteristic-
Starfleet? He's not a Starfleet member.
Yeah.
He's a rando civilian with a camera. He's the most annoying people in our reality. That's another thing. Who is this guy?
Who is this guy?
Is this
How'd he get here?
Is this a TikTok blogger that's trying to have a gotcha moment? Like, it doesn't even work in our world. Even the drone cameras, I'm like, this is okay. So you need you need a camera to capture something when the view screen seemingly captures things out of thin air.
And you mean to tell me that no one notices these drones?
Well, no, they do, because there's moments where the camera gets too close, then you get annoyed. David, I've had these questions that sometimes view screens don't make sense. How does a view screen, these aren't windows.
Yes.
It's a view screen. It's an LCD screen that projects an image. And I've had those questions. Are there secret cameras that are out there so that like probe cameras so the Federation can project these images? It's something I don't think has ever been answered. But if the view screen can seemingly conjure up images in the format of video, then why would there need to be drones for a documentary? Because you can just use whatever technology that is on board the ship to conjure up whatever images you need. It kind of doesn't work. Now, I may be speaking from a place of ignorance. There may be Star Trek fans that know this answer, because I will wholeheartedly admit, when it comes to canon, when it comes to the philosophy of Star Trek, I'm pretty on my game. I'm not a techno-babble guy,
Yeah.
so there may have been an actual episode of Star Trek in its 60 years that actually explained how those view screens work. And I actually seem to remember there was a Discovery episode that might have alluded to how these view screens work. I could be wrong,
Could be wrong, but
that may help someone out there. It may help jog someone's memory. And if you have the answer, please hit us up.
And that's the thing, is kind of like, see, we started this discussion about this episode, how everything, the bones of the episode are good.
Yeah.
Even
The intent. I don't
The
feel
intent's good.
Yeah, some fans feel like this was purposely trying to do the typical like woke thing. Like, oh, here they go. But I completely disagree. I feel like this episode was coming from a good place.
Yeah.
They were trying to explain the political chasm that seemingly is there. To us, it's not. We understand Star Trek politics, but there are a lot of new audiences
That don't.
who don't understand. And at times, they're like, why would these people do these things? Because they're used to more contemporary politics being embedded within TV shows, and that's how those characters react. The ethics and morals that govern our lives in real life are largely implemented into contemporary TV shows. But when you have a show that started 60 years ago that's built on a different view of the world, they're going to have to maintain that forever because that's what the world is built on. And because of that, there will be new people who are just, it doesn't quite gel.
Yeah. And that actually destroys my one other problem that I had with it, which is, to me, this was just treading on the same message that we've seen before in Star Trek. But you're right. When I was coming into the studio, that was one of my points why I was saying that's the other part I had a problem with the episode. But we're dealing in a time in Star Trek when we need a new audience. So you have to have these like telltale, I hate using the word repeat.
Yeah.
But repeat like episodes where it's like, okay, it's the same type of episode as such and such, but we need this so that we can explain it to newer audiences who do not know what the history of Star Trek is.
So when you say repeat, are you talking about things that we've seen in Strange New Worlds or things in Star Trek in general?
Star Trek in general.
Okay.
In Star Trek in general, because like I just brought up early in the show, the fact that people are comparing this to Encounter on Farpoint.
Yeah.
Which you can't say there's
well, okay, so to someone who likes to paint by numbers, yes. Plot-wise, you can argue.
Yes.
People are so basic, David.
Yeah, but they are.
Plot-wise, yes. There's an alien that's being manipulated unfairly,
and he's giant.
Yeah, and he's being treated, and he's in pain. Okay, yes, but philosophically.
It's
in
different.
terms of its intention, it is very different.
Yes.
Now, you are right. We have seen similar episodes of Star Trek in other series tackle very similar things. I don't have a problem with that because Star Trek has a 60-year life so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who don't watch every Star Trek series. There are people who just started watching Star Trek with Discovery and have kind of worked themselves back. In fact, we have listeners who started watching other Star Trek after finding us or finding our discussions on Star Trek Discovery. So these repeat episodes where they tackle similar content, I guess, or tackle similar ideas. Yeah, ideas. Certainly you can say that, and they may be repetitive to us, but largely they're new.
Yes.
And they are, if anything, I don't even feel that it would be repetitive to me. When you have a franchise that has run for 60-plus years, and if you want to keep it strong, precise, concise, and right, you have to sharpen the blade. You can't let it go dull. And an episode like this, that's what it's doing. It's sharpening the blade. It's not allowing the blade to go dull. It's keeping Star Trek firmly fixed as how it should be viewed.
Yes.
So I'm fine with that as well. Because, I mean, if it's not clear, ultimately, I think the episode is a success in what it was attempting to do. I do believe it was coming from a good place. The producers understood the assignment, and they delivered. It's just the Beto character itself could have been remedied by either A, he isn't mad at Starfleet, and he's just mad at his sister. That would make more sense.
More sense, yeah.
That'd be less cynical and more conducive with the world of Star Trek, or it should have been an entirely different scenario. It should have been an alien species that witnesses something Starfleet does, doesn't have context, and now suddenly they're posing these questions.
There you go.
That would have worked. You could have done the exact same thing, and you could have kept Beto on board as the documentarian. It all would have worked. You could have done everything, just it shouldn't have been a human questioning because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense
in the world of Star Trek. So that could be, some people may say that's nitpicking. I do not believe something like that's nitpicking, because to me, that is a very core element of Star Trek. It's the human condition that has changed.
Yeah. And also, just like what we mentioned,
And that's why we'll never have a utopian world like Star Trek, because humanity will never change. The biggest joke of Star Trek is Gene Roddenberry's optimism. I mean, let's be real. I mean, we're still having
Mike, you're
David,
being
I've
cynical.
been reading a lot of Roman history of late. I mean, we are literally going through the exact same fucking issues. Remove technology, and we are having the same fucking debates, the same fucking problems.
Unfortunately, Mike, we all want to be in the, Federation universe. In actuality, we're in the Terran universe.
Yeah.
That's the radical reality of everything when you think about it.
Unfortunately, Ronald D. Moore had it right. The reason why he left Star Trek, he's all, I love this utopian optimism, but I'm more about reality. I'm going to go write Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar
because
Galactica.
that's reality.
And if you think about it, look at Battlestar Galactica. That's the Terran Empire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah. I hope it doesn't sound like we're being overly negative, because I do like the messaging. I do think an episode like this is smart. And I also love the alien, the Jakaru, which, David, following the trend this season, which is dealing with horror genres, now we're dealing with a monster. Because this was like Mothra, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Mothra?
Yeah.
Like, was it not?
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what it was.
That's what it was. It was a giant moth or butterfly.
It was a kaiju.
And it was a giant kaiju that you'd expect Godzilla to show up out of nowhere. And
the visuals were stunning.
Shockingly, yes.
I mean, gorgeous visuals. I'm so glad they didn't dull those and lessen them, because they were trying to do this documentary look. So they're going to fuck up the imagery. I'm glad they stayed with a passable color grade and allowed us to still appreciate the beauty of the cinematography at the same time.
I was really worried with the way the episode was formatted that they would do a Cloverfield, and you wouldn't see the monster.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would have been fitting of the format, but to their credit, season 3 with Strange New Worlds, the visual effects department has been kicking ass this whole year.
Well, I will say this, except for Star Trek Picard season 1, where the visual effects were embarrassing. Like
You mean the copy and paste ships?
Let me be fair. There were moments where it was mind blowing. It was really good, but
Name one, Mike.
The Borg cube.
Okay, all right, the Borg cube.
Yeah, there are a lot of good moments in terms of visual effects, but when it really counted, like the ending, like, so what are we gonna do for this ending here? We need, hundreds of Federation ships. Do we have a budget for this? No, but I have a trick. It's called Clone Stamp.
It's called Photoshop.
It's called Clone Stamp. Okay, Clone Stamp. Yeah, I've heard of that. But what if they all look the same? It's all right. They won't notice.
No one's going to notice. Everyone's going to be too focused on Riker leading the fleet.
And yet, every person that watched the episode that night, the first thing they went to social media to complain about was the copy and paste ships.
Yes.
Yeah. So, except for the first season of Picard, the one thing I can't complain about are the visuals. Star Trek Discovery's visuals, I would even say the visuals were better for Discovery in the first 2 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
And it changed. It was still amazing, but it did change. It didn't lean as heavy into the artistic realm. I felt like the first season and second season really leaned into artistic cinematography with a lot of metaphor there.
Yeah.
Then it changed a bit.
Yeah.
They got more comfortable. They got their routine going, and some of those visual metaphors weren't as powerful. But yes, the visuals, David, in this new era of Star Trek, I don't have complaints, and I'm happy because we all know that we're living in an era of terrible visual effects.
Yes.
So the fact that Star Trek hasn't suffered from that yet, I'm so fucking, and I'm crossing my fingers now, David, because I don't want to jinx it.
Well, think about it, Mike. I mean, we've had a zombie episode.
Zombies.
We've had we technically had a demon episode.
Tactically, yes.
Yes, a demon episode, and now we have a giant monster.
Well, don't
episode.
forget the Gorn from the first from the
Oh,
first
yeah, the
episode.
Gorn.
We had basically what, aliens?
Aliens, and then like so, in a lot of ways.
So we've had alien survival horror, we've had zombie horror,
yes, demonic possession,
horror, or hauntings, I guess you could say.
yeah,
And then you have
the giant monster,
the monster movie.
yeah, and that
Dude, Davy Perez from Supernatural is really paying off.
he's working his ass off.
Dude, I guarantee you, dude, that's the only thing I can point to. Why is Star Trek leaning into horror and doing it really well? Well, Davy Perez is the
there.
only thing that makes sense.
What makes me wonder now, even more so after this episode, is like, what is he going to pull out now?
Dude, what can't you do?
What do you want to do for your magnum opus for this little format, Davy Perez?
Make the Borg scary again, maybe?
No, because then we have to bring
I'm
the
joking.
Borg back.
I'm joking. I don't want to see the Borg ever again. I think we need to be done with them. They were a great villain for 3 decades. Now it's time for something new.
Oh, but Mike, remember, we don't know where the Borg are now, thanks to the Picard.
And we don't need to know. Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of it, right? It's a very simple episode.
It was. Even though it was really gimmicky when you actually take a step back, the episode itself was what you would expect. And that's what I constantly hear from a lot of people online talking about this episode is, oh, it's what we expect as Star Trek fans.
Yeah, I just think this episode would have worked better without the documentary flair, because
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of undercuts the story when you have this brother who is obviously not neutral. His camera work is invasive, and I understand that was intentional. These aren't like errors. These aren't mistakes. These are intentional decisions. But I don't think these decisions ultimately helped the content itself. I feel like the content, the important message that was being said, ultimately, in my opinion, was muddied because this instead of helping the episode with this documentary flair by probing these central questions, the format ultimately just obscures it a bit because you're not really sure is this a gimmick? Because many people are going to focus on the gimmick.
Yes.
And they're not paying attention to what is actually being said. And that's a travesty because you have an episode here that's saying a lot of important things. And I feel like it would have been way more effective if the documentary element just wasn't a thing. And that kind of goes back to another complaint that a lot of Star Trek fans are having with Strange New Worlds. And these aren't like world-ending problems. No one hates Strange New Worlds. Most people agree that Strange New Worlds is pretty fucking great.
Yeah, especially this season.
But the problem that people keep going back to is time wasting. You guys have 10 episodes. This isn't the days of 27 episodes per season. You have 10 episodes, and you have been greenlit for 2 more seasons, which is only going to be another 20 episodes.
Another 20.
And the complaint that I keep seeing is the writers and directors have to stop doing these special episodes because it's taking away from better stories that can be told. That I do agree with.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of gimmicks. I never have. I feel like if you have good writers, that guess what the gimmick is then? Writing!
Yeah.
Writing is the gimmick. Writing good scripts is the gimmick. Not how can we add more flair to this? How can we make this stand out and make it a headline on social media, a musical episode?
Oh God. But it worked.
Well, and that's where, I have to eat my own words because that musical episode did work.
Well, see,
but at the same time, if someone said, Michael, do you want a musical episode or do you want this hard-hitting philosophical episode about the Prime Directive and blah, blah, blah? I'm going to pick the latter every single time. I want my Star Trek is serious. Star Trek has always been serious, even though the 1960s was campy.
Yes.
It still was a serious take on life, on politics, on race, on sociological issues. Overall, it was serious. And I think when you start making a lot of these gimmick episodes within a 10-episode season, you start losing the power that Star Trek is. You can do these gimmick episodes because gimmick episodes aren't new to Star Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek always has kind of played around with some silly moments and silly episodes, but they had 27-episode seasons.
Well,
there's a big difference.
The big thing is just like what you said. It's instead of sharpening your blade, you're dulling your blade.
Yeah.
That's
they're,
what happens.
they're
when you
taking the
use
blade
gimmick.
and banging it on
banging
the
it.
asphalt.
And that's and that's the thing. I do agree with you that basically they have to stop with the gimmick, but the key factor is how does it tie into your greater narrative? And I think when I look at this episode, that's the biggest question I have is, okay, how do you tie this to, because you got to remember also, Mike, that the past couple episodes, me and you have been going, oh my God, they made this connection to that episode and that past episode and the past episode. Where's the connection for this one? How do you connect this? How do you connect
Ortega's. We finally got a little bit on her. That's what I was looking for, David, as well. I was looking for that connection because even though this season is considered largely episodic, it does have an overarching serial element to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we've discussed this time and time again, so I won't re-explain exactly what that is or what that means. But I've been waiting for something to connect back to Ortega's from what was it, the second episode? When she saw, like, was it the Gorn in
the background?
Yeah, in the viewport, the reflection, is right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our first connection to that because she had mentioned her hand. Beto's aggression towards Starfleet had everything to do with that accident that happened to her near-death experience, and her what's it called? The capture of
the Gorn.
There we go. Yeah, the Gorn taking her as a hostage. So there's the connection. I mean, so I didn't have a problem with that. I don't feel like this was like one of those one-off episodes that don't mean anything.
Yes.
It does mean a lot. I just feel like the impact, the punch, would have been more effective without the fucking documentary gimmick.
Yeah.
I just wish... I don't want Star Trek... Okay, this is my problem. You can go back and watch Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, even the original series, with an open mind, knowing that they're realizing and understanding when they were produced. You can watch them, and they're serious. They're about serious things. There isn't anything that diminishes its concise dissection of society.
Yeah.
An episode like this just gets in the way. It gets in the way of something important that's being said. Star Trek has never needed to rely on gimmicks. And that's the reason why you can go back and watch past episodes of any Star Trek and not feel like you need to understand the cultural moment to fully grasp what's being done. When you are dealing with musical episodes and documentary episodes and gimmicks, those things are largely connected to a cultural moment, trends that television studios adhere to, connect with, because for some reason some idiot market researcher told them people love musical episodes and love documentary episodes.
And now puppets.
And puppets, which we're getting next year. And I'm just like, motherfucker, just focus on writing good television, and that's your gimmick. People will always come back to well-written shows. You don't need gimmicks. The people that need gimmicks are shows that are struggling after 5 seasons. That was the rule of thumb. There were two strategies, David, when a show was running its course, but it still had good ratings, and they were trying to rejuvenate it back in the old days. It was stunt casting. So you would have like 3 seasons, show strong, 4th season comes around, the ratings start to drop, so they bring in an A-list celebrity. Stunt casting, that's one right there. The next thing is, oh, geez, my mind just went blank.
Is gimmick using. Making an episode that basically does not stick with the regular format.
Yes.
Where it's kind of like, oh, just like what you said, the musical episode. That's always the go-to, is a musical episode.
Yeah, you do those things when ratings are struggling, when people are tuning out. You don't do those things when your show is strong.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not just a Star Trek Strange New Worlds problem. So I'm not pointing at these writers saying, how dare you? Unfortunately, the writing room is a product of the times. There's a lot of TV shows that no longer have faith in their own writing abilities to maintain an audience. So what they do is they seek out new trends and new gimmicks. How can we connect? Well, quality always works.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. If I was running this writing room and someone brought me a documentary episode, a gimmick episode, I would be like, just fucking get out of here.
No, you would just say agonizer booth for them.
Yeah,
agonizer booth.
Someone transport this guy off my ship into space.
Space. I want him to melt like in the motion picture.
Yeah. Can someone impregnate him with a Gorn baby, please, immediately? Can we get one of those demon aliens and
aliens
and have his eyes get burned down and get possessed, please? I just think it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
This is a show, David, that is operating at full capacity, that has favorable reviews from almost everybody. You don't need this nonsense. Because if you look at the reviews, none of us want it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Take that puppet episode that you have planned for next season and fucking trash it. We don't like these episodes, guys. It doesn't
gimmicks.
suck. But, okay, listen, I'll make a deal with the producers right now, okay? I'm pretty sure Davey Perez listens. You want a gimmick episode? I want more episodes, okay?
There you go.
So if you want to do a gimmick episode, then I expect an increase in an episode. So for every gimmick episode, I want one episode added. So if you want to do 2 or 3, that means we get 13 episodes. You want to fuck around? Then you make time to do it. Don't do it on my time. Don't take my episode count.
Don't derail your motivation. don't derail your not your motivation, but your momentum.
Yeah.
Don't derail your momentum.
David, that's what an episode... There you go. That's the word I was looking for. That's what an episode like this does. We were on a fucking high.
Yes, we were.
And an episode like this is like just you're slamming the brakes. You're slamming the brakes, and you're not even trying to grope me, as you know. You're not even.
You're not trying to block me.
You're not even trying to short stop. Short stop on me. If you're going to slam those brakes, you better try to grab my chest a bit. Fill up my boobs.
Fill up my boobs.
Pinch
a nipple.
Yeah, do something. Yeah. But overall, David, we're being silly right now, but overall, the episode was strong. It did what it needed to do.
Yes.
And what the entire agenda was and the point of the episode, it achieved.
It passed.
It achieved its goal. I just think the documentary aspect and certain little ways they framed Starfleet, I think they could have done it better if they had someone in there from the old school days who didn't just understand Star Trek, but was like the god of Star Trek. Was like, you know what, this is perfect. Because I would agree that if I was in the writing room and I was the consultant, I would say this is 99.9% there.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the documentary aspect, and let's get rid of the whole Beto thinks the Starfleet is an empire. Like, let's get rid of that. And I think we have a good fucking idea here.
Yeah. More focus on Ortegas. Just give it to just let Ortegas actually be the center stage then. And don't cover her with a freaking gimmick.
Yeah, and even Beto could still be around. I don't have a problem with his character. It's just, you know what? He could also, instead of having animosity towards the Federation, they should have had him be upset at his sister.
Yeah, just like
that would have made more sense. If he was upset at his sister, we could understand that. Why do you put yourself in harm's way? You almost died. What would this do to our mother? What would this do to me? I need you. Can you please start thinking about people other than yourself? That's an interpersonal relationship type of issue that we can all understand and would make sense in Star Trek. So that's why I say 99%. The episode was there about 99%. Just a little more thought would have probably fixed it.
Yeah.
So ultimately, David, does it work?
I
I
think
think we kind of answered already, but
yeah, I think we already
let's
did.
make this formal.
And I think we already came to the conclusion it did pass. So it didn't really garner any negative score that we might give it.
Mm-mm.
But I will be honest and say it is the lowest of my scores for this season.
Yeah.
What I have in my notes is a 78 because like it passed, but it's not near my favorite episode. And it just feels like, okay, you gave us the gimmick episode, and what does it do for the rest of the season? Not much, and it could have been better.
It kind of brings to conclusion Ortega's dilemma, which I think maybe it doesn't. Maybe we'll learn more about that. Maybe it's not done. But I do feel like I was robbed a bit. We were expecting more from that entire Ortega's setup.
Especially since the setup is so brutal too, Mike.
Her arm dissolved.
Arm dissolved.
It was pretty fucking horrific.
Her arm was taken away from her, and then you have her having hallucinations of the't monstrous creature you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, and the resolve is this episode.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem fair or right.
Yeah, that's the thing, and especially since there's no question about the Gorn. There's nothing.
Yeah. So, David, what's your score?
That's 78.
David, no joke, because I think people think we lie. I literally wrote 78 as well, but I'm going to change it.
Just because it's the same?
It can't be the same. So,
It can't be the same.
So I feel, I think my thoughts are littered. I think people can gather, how I ultimately feel about the episode. But just to make it more formal, I think ultimately the result is a fragmented narrative that mostly undermines the moral and political dilemmas at its core. Starfleet's contradictory role as both a scientific organization and a military power, and the ethics of obeying questionable orders, and the crew's struggle to respond to a sentient being that is being weaponized against its will, and also by leaning so heavily on the mock documentary aspects, the episode, in my opinion, ultimately sacrifices depth in its central conflict and diffuses what could have been a pointed exploration of Starfleet's dual identity as military power and scientific organization. Because it is a military power, but not because of any type of offensive or colonial intent. It's solely defensive. I mean, that's what Enterprise set up. Enterprise explained why in the opening season, David, of Enterprise, the biggest dilemma was they had no weapons.
Yeah.
We didn't know we were going to need them. These aliens are mean. We thought they were like us. That was the whole point, that they were just scientific, and then they realized if we're going to explore, we're going to need to protect ourselves. So by the very act of needing to protect yourself, they have to become a bit of a military power. But that's always secondary, because it's simply a reality. If you're traveling the stars and enemies want to kill you, you're an idiot if you're not armed.
And then we look at our truth.
So, 77%. There are problems. Yeah. All right. That brings us to the end. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.